Carbon is one of the most important elements on Earth. There is carbon everywhere on this planet. We are made of carbon, we eat carbon, carbon is in everything. It is the foundation for all life on Earth. But you still may be asking, what is carbon? Carbon is an element on the periodic table. Carbon is one of the most abundant elements on Earth. It can be found in pure forms like diamonds or graphite, and it can combine with other elements on the periodic table to create molecules like carbon dioxide. Most of the carbon on Earth is stored in rocks, minerals, and other sediment buried deep beneath the surface. The rest of the carbon on Earth is found in the oceans, plants and animals, soil, organic matter, fossil fuels, and most importantly, the atmosphere. These places where carbon is stored are called reservoirs. Where more carbon is being absorbed from the atmosphere than being released are called carbon sinks. The world's largest carbon sinks are the oceans, soil, and forests. Where more carbon is being released into the atmosphere are called carbon sources. Human activities like using fossil fuels and cutting down forests are carbon sources. Carbon is in a constant state of movement between these different reservoirs. It's constantly circulating between Earth's surface, the oceans, living things, and the atmosphere. This movement of carbon between different reservoirs is called the carbon cycle. The carbon cycle is very important because it works to keep the carbon levels on Earth balanced, meaning that the amount of carbon that is naturally released from reservoirs is roughly equal to the amount of carbon that is naturally absorbed by carbon sinks. Maintaining this carbon balance helps keep Earth's climate stable. The amount of carbon on Earth never changes, it always stays the same, but carbon does change forms and moves between different reservoirs through the carbon cycle. So the amount of carbon in a specific reservoir changes over time as carbon moves around. And just how does carbon cycle from reservoir to reservoir? Well, carbon travels from the atmosphere to the Earth, to the ocean, and then back to the atmosphere in a variety of different ways and through a variety of processes. You might have heard of things like photosynthesis, where plants take in carbon from the atmosphere to make food, or even through natural occurrences like volcanic eruptions, where erupting volcanoes release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. There are so many ways that carbon gets moved around. But carbon is also stored in fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas. When fossil fuels are burned, the carbon in those fossil fuels is released into the atmosphere and is converted into carbon dioxide. Remember at the beginning when we said that carbon can combine with other elements on the periodic table to create molecules? Well, carbon dioxide is a molecule, and it forms when carbon combines with two oxygen atoms. So it is made of one carbon and two oxygens, and it is found in a gas state that is invisible to the human eye. Over the last 200 years, humans have increased the amount of fossil fuels that are being burned to generate energy. This has caused a significant change in the balance of the carbon cycle. The burning of fossil fuels has released more carbon into the atmosphere, carbon that would otherwise be stored in the land and rock of the Earth. This is causing the amount of carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas, in the atmosphere to rise. In fact, the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is around 50% higher than it was 200 years ago. So the carbon cycle is changing because humans are releasing more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and producing more carbon sources than the Earth's natural carbon sinks can absorb. And that affects the balance of the carbon cycle. It's important that humans don't drastically disrupt the balance of the carbon cycle. Keeping it in balance allows the Earth to be hospitable and be able to support life. So, what do we need to do to keep the carbon cycle stable? Well, the first step is to reduce the amount of fossil fuels that humans are using, since that process emits carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. We can also do more work to protect Earth's natural carbon sinks like forests and the oceans. Protecting our existing forests from deforestation and planting more trees in the right areas will help to absorb and store carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. As individuals, we can all do little and big actions to help limit the amount of carbon dioxide that we're putting into the atmosphere. For example, I don't eat meat and instead eat plant-based meals, which significantly reduces the greenhouse gas emissions from the food I eat. Shop secondhand to reduce fashion waste. And I try to cut out plastic from my life with reusable bags, containers, and bottles. Some of these actions might not work for you, or they may seem a little strange at first to implement, but it's important that we all try to make the effort to reduce our carbon footprint. Visit climate.sciencenorth.ca to see other ways you can reduce your carbon emissions and let us know how you're taking climate action.